So, hello again in another exciting tutorial with Unity and Playmaker with me, Romi Fauzi. And in this 5th episode, I'm going to continue where we left off by creating the enemy. And we have created a very simple enemy formation, as you can see. Now we are going to make this even interesting. So, by default, the enemies gets activated right away, the enemy group, right? So we are going to create some sort of enabler, and this enemy group will get triggered by this trigger. So okay, I'm going just to move this back by its own, unparent from the world moving system, and I'm going to create a new empty object under the world moving system, and we are going to add a box collider for this system, and I'm going to scale on the x-axis long enough to cover our screen here, and then move the z positions to the front so we cannot see it anymore on our camera. I'm just going to make sure this is the boundary, so we can move it a bit. Okay, so, and make sure that its trigger is enabled, it's checked, and rename the game object to enemy trigger. And for our enemy group, we are going to add a rigid body and disable use gravity, and also a box collider, a small one. Okay, so for the enemy trigger, we are going to assign a tag enemy spawner. So if you haven't, just create a new one, add tag, and name it enemy spawner. And then under the enemy group, we are going to rearrange this a bit. So the first state, I'm going to name this iterate child, and the second state is launch or activate child. And then I'm going to create a new state, first state, and I'm going to rename this wait for trigger, and I'm going to make this the start state, so it starts from this state, not this state. And for the wait for trigger, I'm going to add a trigger event. For the trigger event, I'm going to choose enemy spawner as the tag, so it will check for another object that has this enemy spawner tag, and if it's gets triggered by that object, it will send to this new event. So we can just create a new event called start, and then add that transition start, and then send that event here. And here I'm going to create a new state, and let's rename the state set parent. So basically what I want to do is, when these enemy groups get triggered by this enemy trigger, it will become the child of this enemy trigger, so it will follow the world system. Okay, you'll see what I meant with this. So okay, with the set parent, we need to store the collider under the trigger event, so we are going to create a new variable, or we can just create new variable from here. So create a new variable parent, and then go to start, and under set parent, use a set parent action, and choose that parent object variable as our parent, and add finish transition, and then go to iterate child. So this is basically what we need to do in order to trigger this enemy group. So now I'm going to show you how to rearrange this. So first, this is our first enemy group. We can just duplicate the enemy group right away by pressing Ctrl D, and we can put it here, and we can just duplicate another one, put it here. So if we try to run this, we can see that we have there you go, we have the first formation and the second formation, and then the third one. So this is basically what shoot 'em up system is set to be. So we can create a couple of different formation here across the level, and this is basically this what wait for trigger is doing. And set parent is make sure that once it gets triggered, it's follow the world moving system. Otherwise, if I just try to disable the set parent for each of this enemy group, you'll see, and I'm going to make sure that I enable the gizmo, so we can see that once it gets triggered, it starts from that point here. It starts from this point, and this is going to be a problem. So that's why we need to set the parent of each of this group object. Okay, so this is basically working, and now next thing to do is to create a interaction between our blaster with the enemy object. So first, I'm going to go to the prefabs because I've already created a standard blaster here, and I'm going to drag this to our scene. For the standard blaster, I have changed the collider here. As you can see, I decided to make only one collider and make it 2 units on the 2 unit bigs on the x-axis for the scale, for the size, and so it make this trigger here make sure that we can hit the enemy. Otherwise, the one we set up before with 2 different collider only on the particle, sometimes we miss on hitting the enemies. So this should be better. Otherwise, it would be frustrating for the player to play our game because it's so hard just to kill the enemies. And then we are going to set the enemy, the fighter low prefab, the child enemy here. So I'm going to delete all 4 of it, the other 4, and I'm going to enable this one. And then under Playmaker, we can create a new FSM, and we are going to maybe enemy mechanic, rename this FSM to enemy mechanic, and for the first state, add a trigger 2D event, and for the collider tag, I'm going to make sure it sets to beam because beam is our weapon, our enemy. And maybe we can add a new event called get hit, and add the transition get hit, and we can send. And sorry, it's not trigger to the event. Remove this, but it should be trigger event only, and set this back to beam and send the event to get hit. And I'm going to create a new state here, rename the second state to destroy. So we can use destroy self. Okay, and make sure that our standard blaster have a rigid body, because basically with the trigger or collision system, for the collision or the trigger to works, we need to, one of the object will have to we need to have a rigid body component, but we can disable the use gravity, so it will only detect only detect the trigger for the standard blaster. Okay, so now let's do this. Save this and then disable again the fighter low prefab and make a couple and you can add as many child as you want. This FSM will automatically take care of launching each of the child and give him a delay between of the child. So okay, let's try it. there you go, we can destroy the enemy. So maybe it's a bit hard to see, but as you can see, I can destroy all of the enemy except the first one. The first one is very hard to hit. So there you go. And one problem is when we shoot the enemy gets destroyed by our blaster, but our blaster keeps going straight, so it will destroy the other enemy behind. We need to also destroy our blaster. So let's create a new variable here called blaster, and then on the second state we are going also to destroy our blaster. So destroy object, and then I'm going to move this above destroy self, so it makes sure it gets executed before this FSM gets destroyed with the model. And then under game object, set this to blaster. So first it will destroy the blaster, and then it will destroy itself. Okay, so where is it? Oh, sorry, because the enemy, we have deleted all other child, so I'm going to reduplicate and let's try that. There. So we are going to create a simple explosion particle here. So I'm going to rename the game object to explosion and add a particle system. So first I'm going to change the duration to 1 and change its shape to around change its shape to a sphere, and I'm going to reposition here. I'm going to copy the transform and paste this to the explosion transform, so it gets aligned, and we are going to enable the fighter enemy, so we know the dimension of the enemy, so we can decide on our particle size. And then change the start size to around 10, maybe a random between two constants. The first one is 7 to 10, and change the start speed to around 15. It's okay. The lifetime maybe around 2.5 seconds. And then we are going to change the max particle to around 20 and the rate to around maybe 200, so it's get only once. And then later we are going to disable looping. Right now we can just keep it on, so we can see the particle as we change the value. So we are going to use a limit velocity over lifetime, and then I'm going to use a curve value for the speed, and here we have a start speed of 15, so I'm going to change the first value here to 15 on the first keyframe, and I'm going to add a key maybe around in the middle and drag this down, maybe around there, or maybe a smaller value, or maybe here, so we can see it starts fast and then it's get dragged by the air resistance, just like explosion shield. Or maybe make this a bit faster here, start the keyframe starting, so as we can see it's very quick, or maybe around here. It should be okay. Okay, so or make the start speed lower, around 10. Yep, I think that should be fine. Okay, simulate, and I'm going to change the color over lifetime. So we are going to make sure the first is the alpha. The first alpha is set to opaque and the last one to 0. And in between I'm going to insert a new opaque value here, and then it will get dissolved. For the color, I'm going to create a slightly yellowish color on the first, and after that it gets to a bit orange. Okay, maybe around this value here, and third one is going to be a orange color, and the last one is going to be a black color, and the last, of course, this should be also black. So there, as you can see, we have a explosion, and we are going to also set the size over lifetime. So first I'm going to create a new key here, but the first key I'm going to make this very small, and I'm going to adjust the shape here. So it should start very small. Okay, is it working? Size over lifetime. I think this should be okay. I can recommend you I can recommend you a tutorial regarding this explosion, and I'm going to put the link here to another videos regarding the explosion by Gabriel Martino, and you can just click it here. It has a very nice explosion, and you can follow his tutorial there and apply that explosion into this project. So now, okay, we have this explosion. I'm going to make this explosion as a prefabs. So just drag this. First disable the looping, so it only runs one, and then I'm going to increase the order in layer to 1, so it gets rendered in front the 3D object. Okay, just try it later. And then I'm going to drag this to our explosion, to our prefabs folder, and I'm going to add a new FSM. I'm going to add a destroy object, objects, not objects, but only one. And then I'm going to set the object to itself, and I'm going to give a delay for maybe 3 seconds before it gets destroyed. So I'm going to click apply, so it's get applied to the prefabs, and I'm going to delete the explosion. Okay, so now we are going to delete all of the other fighter low prefabs, and under our enemy mechanics, we are going to destroy, but before we are going to destroy our ship, we are going to create an object. So let's create object, and then we can choose from our prefabs the explosion there, and for the spawn point we are going to add our own object, this fighter low prefab here to the spawn point. And then I'm going to, I don't know, it should be apply or we can or maybe later. I'm going just to leave it. And then for the fighter low prefab, I'm going to duplicate this again and disable. Make sure it's get disabled first. Save it and let's try. There you go. We have a explosion, but I'm going to use that the one that Gabriel Martino made, so I'm going to apply that kind of explosion. So if you want to, you can also apply that explosion. So let's conclude our 5th episode, and I hope you like what you are watching. If you have any questions, just leave it at the comment, and I'll try to answer as quick as possible. And please subscribe. Hope you enjoy this. Thanks for watching. I see you on the next episode. Bye.